Yes. All right, we welcome our next guest in this morning. A name you recognize. He is suited up and ready to go for the beginning of a new legislative session. Trey Lamar, chairman of the House and Ways Committee, House of Representatives, represents District 8. Good morning, Mr. Representative.
Good morning, Richard. Appreciate you having me.
I appreciate you coming in studio with us. Big day. Is there a level of excitement? I don't know, like the first day of school when you're growing up, or your first baseball game of the summer rec season when you come back into session?
Sure, yeah. That's exactly what it's like. I was so excited I had to come down here yesterday and start work early. So, yeah,
I'm sure your family was thrilled to see you leave a day early.
They were. And I don't know if they're listening or not, but I didn't tell them exactly which day this week the session started. I just said Daddy had to go to Jackson on Monday. So we're excited about it. It's going to be we got some big stuff on the horizon, and always excited to look after the interest of the taxpayers in Mississippi.
Right before we got into our conversation with Michael Guest, we saw the post on X from Tate Reeves, and he basically said the number one agenda item is getting rid of the state income tax, and he tagged a bunch of state leaders and elected officials in that in terms of carrying out the governor's wishes. And I know something that you have worked on really hard for a really long time. What's the game plan?
So, yeah, I thought you might ask me about that. I saw that on my way to the studio this morning. Really excited about that. And I think the speaker has already said this is number one issue this year. And I've told a lot of people know this. It's something that I've worked on since 2016 when I became vice chair of the committee way back then. A little bit of history there. Tate Reeves was lieutenant governor at the time, and we were working on the 2016 tax reform during that time, which was the very first time that we started the process of eliminating the income tax, or what I call the tax on work, in the state of Mississippi, and that's when we eliminated a 3% bracket. We carried that over several years, and then we did our 22 tax reform. Was fortunate enough to serve as a principal author on all of those bills and help them guide through the legislative process. And so this process has been going on for a long time, and I hope that this year, 2025, some roughly 10 years later, will be the year that we finally enact the elimination of the tax on work in the state of Mississippi. I can't think of anything better that we could do for the working people of Mississippi than not tax their work. And so if there's one thing we need more people doing in the state of Mississippi, we need more people working, more people pulling their weight, more people helping their families. So why in the world, if we don't have to, why in the world do we tax their work? There's at least 9 other states that don't do that, and kind of show us that it can be done. And I look forward to unveiling a plan very soon that will do just that.
And most of those states are in the southeastern part of the United States, not exclusively, but you see it in Tennessee, you see it in Florida, you see it in Texas, where there is no state income tax. And obviously those are 3 economies, 3 states that are thriving economically. There's so many layers. There's so many different things. I know the last time we talked, we kind of went through the math, and it's hard to do on the radio. I guess I would ask you this. We know that in terms of the way this is presented, there is or at least has been, a pretty significant degree disagreement between the way the Speaker of the House, Jason White, you and others on the House side of things look at this issue than the way the Senate looks at it under the leadership of Lieutenant Governor Delbert Hosemann. What do you think is the biggest obstacle that you've got to overcome in the way this legislation is crafted, the way it's worded, the way the bill is written that you're going to present, to get to a consensus, to get to a place where both sides can get this done so that you can get it across the finish line?
I think we're just going to rely on the facts. And look, I've got great friends in the Senate, served a lot of years with several of those guys, including Lieutenant Governor Hosemann. And, you know, you go back to what I said a minute ago, the 2016 reform. We have started this process years ago, and we're at a point now where I think we can put into place the actual elimination, not just reductions, but the elimination of the income tax in Mississippi. with a rate that was similar to what we've done over the last 9 or 10 years. So we have a track record of doing this, Richard. And you go back and look at the state's revenue in 16 and what it is, today, some 10 years later, and it's gone sky high. Now we're making more money than we've ever made.
Has it
in the
doubled?
state of Mississippi.
Has it doubled in 9 years?
We've got projected to bring in around $7.7 billion, and I think back then we were somewhere around $5 billion, somewhere in that ballpark. Those are rough numbers, but that's you can see we're up a lot.
40%. Yeah,
it's been tremendous growth at the same time that we have been whittling away at the income tax, and so we're going to rely on those numbers, the facts, and I've said a couple things. We had our big meeting back in the fall that the speaker convened. Really spent a whole day talking about tax reform. Had a lot of people there from all over the country and a lot of different business groups talking about it. And so I spoke at that event and I said, look, I have 3 goals, and here's number 1. I want to have the number 1 rated most competitive tax code in the entire country. With our leadership, we've gone several years now, Republican leadership in the House, the Senate, and the governor's office. There is no reason that our goal should not be to have the number 1 most competitive tax code in the entire country. That's my goal. I want to eliminate the income tax. I want to keep our sales tax below what every other state around us is, and then that will send a message not just across the state or the South or the country, but really to the world. We've got people looking to invest in America from all over the world, and why not Mississippi? I think that's the position that we need to take. And then number 2, government is closest to the people at the city and the county level. And so as part of this tax reform package that we're going to present this year, I want to help our cities and our counties. Those supervisors and those mayors and those aldermen struggle every day to put pennies together to fix roads and take care of the basic needs that people need that is right there at home for them. And so we want to help our cities and counties. And then lastly, the third goal is to fix the broken funding of our MDOT system. Our state highway system funding has been broken since 1987. We're trying to pay for a modern highway system with 1987 money and funding, and you just can't do it. And I believe there is a path forward to accomplish all 3 of those goals in this one piece of legislation, and that's what we look forward to unveiling very soon.
All right, so I've got to ask you a little more detail on the helping cities and counties, as you mentioned there. We got 2.5 minutes to the break, maybe got enough time, and certainly can carry this over. You say eliminating the income tax, which to me means less revenue coming in to the state, and yet there's a helping piece for cities and counties, which, at least on the surface, says to me that's money that's going out.
Yep.
How do you pay for everything?
Yeah, so people are going to have to be willing to take an honest look at our tax code. And if you take the position that I will not look at this tax over here to see if it's too low, then what you're essentially saying is that we've got a perfect tax code. And I'm here today to tell you we don't have a perfect tax code. We've got a patchwork of a tax code that's been put together over 100-plus years to benefit this person over that person, who had the best lobbyist. We do not have a perfect tax code. I want to fix it. I want to make it – we're never going to get perfect, but I want to make it a lot better than it is today. And in order to do that, we've got to be willing to move some parts around to accomplish that goal.
Does that mean higher property taxes for Mississippians?
Absolutely not. The bill that we have will not touch property taxes. So we're not interested in that at all. In fact, I've got a separate bill that we're going to be looking at to see how we can reduce some of the property taxes and help those landowners in that area. But this tax reform that we're working on would not even speak to property taxes, would have no effect whatsoever.
I love where you're going with, we want to cut here and we want to cut here and move things around. But my question does come in terms of revenue, and where do you make up the lost money that currently is coming? I know there's surplus there, and so there's some money that you've got to work with. Is it specifically from continued growth in the business community through economic development making up the difference?
There would be part of that. And maybe you have to have me on in maybe a week or two, and we'll get into some of the specifics of what it looks like. But I hope to have that conversation with you very soon.
All right. Well, if we're going to do that, I will come to Jackson for that show, and we'll sit down and we'll lock out an hour when you've got time to do it. You got time to hang for one more segment?
Yes, sir.
Trey Lamar, House of Representatives, chairman of the House Ways and Means Committee, represents District 8 in North Mississippi. Quick timeout. This is the Gallo Radio Show, Super Talk Mississippi. More coming up with you on the other side of this quick timeout. Gallo Radio Show. Thanks for being with us. Hey, you could be in the U.S. House of Representatives, where a bill has been introduced to make daylight savings time permanent. You know, one of the great debates.
What's the argument against it?
Not having daylight until 8:30 in the morning in the wintertime, I guess.
Man, it kind of felt that way this morning. I don't know. Look.
Yeah. No, we're not going down that road.
I'm
right
ready.
now.
Let's go.
Visiting with Trey Lamar, Mississippi House of Representatives, District 8 is his home district, mostly Tate County, and he is the chair of the House Ways and Means Committee. I understand that you don't want to go too far down the road of everything that is going to be in what you're going to introduce. Does it feel like your colleagues know what is coming? I know there's some that have been part of this process,
sure,
right, in terms of crafting this legislation, but the conversation has been about eliminating the income tax, and it sounds like this is a much more holistic approach that you are taking. Does that make it more difficult if there's more there to digest, or does it create, hopefully, more answers than questions?
No, I guess to answer your first question, yes. My colleagues in the House know exactly what's coming. We've spent, as I mentioned earlier, we had the tax summit back in, I believe it was September, October, whenever it was. We've also had other tax meetings on top of that, hearings. This is something we've been working on all year to refine the finer points, to hear from all sides, the people in the construction industry, the road building industry, the city's needs, the county's needs, obviously the taxpayers' needs, and something we've been working on for a while. And so I expect when we go forward with our plan that we will have broad support in the Mississippi House of Representatives and across the political spectrum in the state. So I know you mentioned Governor Reeves's social media post this morning, and look forward to having his support as well, and just excited about what we're doing for the future of Mississippi.
You mentioned roads and bridges and a permanent funding model for MDOT, so that it's not having to be allocated annually and them constantly running in terms of a shortfall. And even if you don't want to get into specifics, nobody likes taxes being raised, but I feel like there are a whole lot more people that are on board with the idea of a consumption tax, or the gas taxes we're talking about, because we run well behind the regional average and the national average.
Yeah, so if anybody can muster enough courage to kind of sit down and look at how we actually tax our people, sometimes it takes us, get to that point. But a consumption-based model is a much more conservative and much more fair approach to how we fund government. I mean, it doesn't get much fairer that if you use it, you pay for it. While we tax people's work, which is a direct tax on productivity, which we need people being more productive, I can't understand why that was done whenever it was done. But here we are today, and we're trying to unwind some of these things that were done maybe 100-plus years ago, and looking forward to doing it. But the consumption model, Richard, is where we have said many times that we want to get to. That's been our goal. I know Speaker White and former Speaker Gunn both said that that's what they would like to see, and we've been pushing for that for a long time. Governor Reeves is obviously on board with that. And when you reach that mindset and you look at it from that standpoint, you've got to be willing to take a look at the whole tax code, and a big part of that is sales taxes, which is the consumption tax, and also the income tax. You mentioned specifically the fuel tax. We have the 49th lowest gas tax in the nation. 49th lowest. The only state lower than us is Alaska, and that's because they have oil and they don't have many roads. Okay. All right, so that means two things.
And the ones that they do have are covered with ice for half the year.
There you go. So that means two things. Either we're the smartest folks in the country and we've got it all figured out, or the state of Mississippi is not properly taking care of our highway system. That's the only two things that can mean. And I think most people, when they look at all the facts, they come to the conclusion that it's the latter. And so we've got a 1987 funding model that is right now expected to fund a modern highway transportation system. And, highways and transportation is so important in the world of economic development. If we want the future of Mississippi to be what we all want it to be, we have got to bring our highway system, got to modernize our highway system and bring it into the 21st century.
You are you're a veteran politician now, so you're not going to answer this question straight.
I'm supposed to take offense to that, I think.
But I'm going to ask it anyway because it involves making a prediction. Which is more likely to pass this year, Medicaid expansion or school choice?
School choice, I think so.
You did answer it straight.
Yeah,
Thanks.
Yeah, I don't mind. Look, you and I go way back, Richard.
I know. I'm giving you a hard time.
You're good at it. You're good at it. Next time you have Michael Heindel on, though, we may have something special for you. So it's you may not remember that. You gave me a hard time the last time you had Dr. Heindel on, the president of Northwest.
Are you going to name a building after me?
Just know we hadn't forgotten about that. That's
good to know.
Just watch your back.
A lot of good things happening at Northwest Community College in Senatobia.
It is a crowning jewel in our community college system in the state of Mississippi. So let me say this. State of Arkansas, state of Louisiana, and the state of Alabama have passed measures to give parents more choice in education. That is a conservative movement that the taxpayers are demanding. There's a way, I think, to do it responsibly and continue to look at it. And I know Speaker White has got, and Chairman Robertson on the House side, and our friends in the Senate are looking at ways that we can do that. And I hope they make some strides in that area. As far as Medicaid goes, you've got President Trump coming in right now with a brand new cabinet, Republican-controlled Senate and House. I think it's probably wise to just see what he does. I mean, we don't know exactly what he's going to do in the way of Medicaid from on a federal, national level. So I think we need to at least look at that and then go from there. There are guys that are a whole lot smarter than me in the world of Medicaid that are working on that, though.
Well, and we talked about that a little bit earlier this morning, and I get the argument that it's already being paid for. Why wouldn't you take advantage of it? But if this Department of Government efficiency operates the way that it is intended to operate, there's a lot of waste that's going to be cut. I just don't know that there's a guarantee that the federal government is going to continue to reimburse the way they currently are. And I think it's a whole lot, even if it's written in, I think it's a whole lot easier said than done that, you're just going to roll it back if you put it in place.
Well, look, I wouldn't be surprised. Who knows what they're going to do? I mean, he's got Dr. Oz, and the only thing I know about Dr. Oz is he was on TV at one point in time. So I presume he did go to med school and has a distinguished medical career as well. But, who knows what Trump and that administration may do? Set expansion aside for a minute. They may take a look at the entire Medicaid program and make holistic changes to the entire program. And, I think we're going to have to see what direction that they take the country in that area before we really comment too much.
We were having a staff meeting yesterday, and there were a bunch of different ideas that were floated out. Gerard's way smarter about this than I am, but he talked about the possibility of block grant funding.
I've heard that.
Hey, here's the money allocated for your state. This is what you've got, and if you go over that, good luck. Pay for it.
Yeah, so, I mean, that's certainly a possibility. So I don't know all the details. I know we've got a very talented chairman in the House, Chairman Missy McGee, and then on the Senate side, some smart folks over there as well working on those, and I trust that they'll look after the best interest of Mississippians. How
do you prioritize what happens? I think about all the different committees and all the different committee chairs, and there's a lot of hard work that goes into each committee. There's a reason that those committees are in place to address specific issues, but I feel like sometimes it's easy for senators or representatives to kind of get pigeonholed into the issue that they're working on and think that's the absolute most important thing, and yet there has to be a priority. I know the speaker is going to set that agenda and kind of look at things in order of importance, but how do you decide what that order is?
Well, that's a good question. It's you pick good people to be in those spots, and Speaker White has done a good job of putting some of our best and brightest House members in key chairmanship spots and some of our toughest chairmen in toughest committees. Certainly Medicaid's one of those, public health, judiciary. There's some key committees out there. Education, extremely important. You got to have people that you trust in those spots, and then we have leadership meetings and we talk about it and go from there. So it's a lot of fun.
Trey Lamar, Chairman of the House Ways and Means Committee, I wish you and all of your colleagues well. I try to offer up a prayer on the first day of the session every year for wisdom for all of the leadership and all the members. Appreciate your service, and those of your colleagues, regardless of what side of the aisle they serve on. I do think that ultimately everybody wants what's best for Mississippi.
Well, thank you, Richard. Your prayers are most important, and they're certainly needed. And stay tuned for comprehensive transformational tax reform in the state of Mississippi.
All right, look forward to diving deeper into that in a couple of weeks. Trey Lamar, Chairman of the House Ways and Means Committee. He represents District 8, joining us on the Gallo Radio Show, SuperTalk, Mississippi. Half an hour left with you. We are back right after this.